This is Lynn. I'm here.
Tammy's pound cake.
It's just like field house, right?
Party house.
Yeah.
It's on the side of the room.
Right. Yeah.
People assume I'm a finance person.
All right, we'll call this.
funny.
All right, first up, we do have an agenda change. We're going to be removing the closed session meeting minutes, GS 142-1811A1 from the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to remove that agenda item. Remove a motion on the floor. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Recognition.
I believe I've been asked to do that since we don't want to have our chairperson recognize himself.
I can do it. I can talk about how great I am.
So we have two departing board members, Dave Phillips and Steve Sasha. Steve has served as our chairman the past 3 years. He's been on the board for 5 years, appointed by the town of Harrisburg in January 2016. And he's done an admirable job. And Dave Phillips is one of our senior members of this board, appointed by the city of Concord in June of 2001. So he's been with us for 20 years. And he brought us through some times with our interbasin transfer and brought his knowledge and his connections with Duke Energy to bear on that and our Heat Energy project as well. So Dave's been an invaluable resource for this board for a long, long time. And we're going to miss both of you. And on behalf of the board of directors and WSACC staff, we thank you for your leadership, your commitment to this board and to our greater communities in Cabarrus County at large. A small gift of appreciation to both of you. Thank you from the board and from the staff. And thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
All right, so we'll move to unfinished business. Minutes for November 18th.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Those on the floor, probably second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next up, presentation of fiscal year ending 2021 independent auditors.
Good evening. Item 40 tonight is to receive the authority's annual comprehensive financial report, often called our financial statement, also often called the audit report. As stated in my agenda memo, we received our desired outcome from both auditors as well as the state. Tonight, Mr. John Capel, the Flounder Company, is here with us tonight to give you a high-level view of those financial statements. I do want to take this opportunity to thank the finance staff, both Shelley Paris and Sandy Kane. Without them, statements would have been hard to produce, and they did an outstanding job. The full report is available on the website for both yours and the public's viewing. And there's no action required of you tonight, but if you have any specific questions or concerns, I'm happy to assist either tonight or directly. Feel free to contact me here at the office. So without that, thank you kindly. And I will present Mr. John Copper to give you that. And the statements that he's going to read from, Thomas has on the screen, we'll bring up on the monitors.
Okay. As always, thank y'all for the opportunity to be of service to the Water and Sewer Authority. We've enjoyed this relationship for several years now. Enjoyed it and enjoyed getting to work with Chris and obviously Shelley and that team, that thing. Because like Chris said, if without their efforts and everything, this would be a very difficult endeavor to get through. So a couple things that I'll point out to you is just like in the past, as we always have, we have issued an unmodified opinion on financial statements of the Water and Sewer Authority of Cabarrus County as of June 30th, 2021. That's the highest level of assurance that we can give as certified public, that in all material aspects, the financial position of the Water and Sewer Authority is fairly presented. And we commonly call this a clean opinion. So a couple statements that we'll just kind of brush over for this year, and then plus two, y'all already have great internal financial reporting that you get on a reoccurring basis and that type of thing. But this is just kind of reaffirm that and just kind of go over that. Your statement in that position, which is basically your balance sheet in the for-profit world, we just call it something different under governmental auditing standards. You'll see there that at the end of the year, that your total cash and equivalents that you had on hand were 34,680,000. Underneath there, your total receivables that you had were 2.7. So you'll see that your current assets and current in the accounting world is going to be obligations that could be converted to cash in less than 1 year. Total current assets that you had on hand were 36.4 million. Down the statement of net position, you'll see there that your non-current assets mainly are just your plant operation equipment and that type of thing. That's $134 million. So obviously that takes up a huge bulk of your total assets that you have on hand. Total assets on hand were 170 million from that standpoint. Deferred pension outflows and that type of thing, that's something that we've had to put into the statements the last couple of years. That's the portion of the Water and Sewer Authority's state pension that now has to be recorded on the unit's financial statements from that time to time. So coming down, just continuing to look at your current assets, and again, current liabilities mean the same thing, just like current assets do. There are obligations that you expect to pay within 1 year or less. So that being the case, your total current liabilities that you had on the books were a little bit over $4 million for this year. And again, something that you want to look at is what your current ratio is. I know that's something that the LGC has consistently looked at for y'all in the past too as well. Anytime that you have a current ratio of 1 or above, and that would be the ratio of current assets, which we just looked at with 37 million compared to current liabilities, which is now 4 million. Anytime that number is 1 or above, that's a good thing. You are a very healthy and robust ratio in that regard. Coming down the balance, the net position, you'll see there that your total net position that you had at the end of 2021 was 159 million. And part of that obviously is going to be your capital assets that you had on hand. And that is net of the debt that's associated with those. Restricted, we have some restricted debt position in regards to the system development fees. And then your unrestricted position, net position that you had was almost 20 million. Next item that we'll kind of touch on is your statement of revenue and expenses and change in position, which in the world we call this the income statement. From that standpoint, depreciation is a huge, and that's a non-cash item, expense on a recurrent basis. And so your total, you'll see there that you've got an operating loss when you look at the change for net position for this year. But I would also note out, and we'll touch on this when we get to the cash flow statement, that depreciation, which is a non-cash expense, is almost $7.4 million. So that's a huge non-cash item that gets recorded every year from that standpoint. So that's what's driving your operating loss that you're showing there. But coming down the statement of change in net position, you'll continue to see, go down, yeah. So down below, we show capital contributions, which are contributions from the system development fees, and then also to some from local governments and that type of thing. Those get included too as well. And so your net position changed, it increased $6 million once we took into all those factors for this year. Next one that we want to look at, statement that we'll look at, is your statement of cash flows. And that's basically where we take your statements your statement in that position, which we just looked at, and we convert everything to cash. Your statement of net position is on an accrual basis of accounting. This is basically on a cash basis. And the statement of cash flows kind of breaks things out into 3 distinct operating categories, if you want to think of it that way: operating, capital, and investing. What you always want to be mindful of is how are your operations, sort of cash flow are they providing from that standpoint. And you'll see there that, again, your operations are showing a positive cash flow amount for this year. It was over $5 million. So you say, okay, that's great and well. So what happened to that cash? What did we do with it? Well, part of it went down to pay, if you looked in the next section, part of it went to pay some debt. So you paid $2.5 million almost of long-term principal debt. You paid some interest on that, and then plus two, the capital assets that were purchased with cash during this year were $6.4 million. In addition to your capital and related financing activities, included in there are the cash contributions from the government, since system development fees and from governments. And down below there, total interest that was earned on your investments that you had for this year was 111. So all that proved to say that you increased your cash $4.2 million compared to where it was at the end of last year. The last item that I want to look at as far as in the statements, and we'll go to the last one. Where is this? Should be one more, maybe. Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right. So this is what you probably look at on a board on a recurring basis, and this is your original to budget and your budget to actual statements and that type of thing that you look at on a reoccurring basis. And this is where we break down the different departments where you've adopted your budget and how did you look and when was the budget amendment and so on and so on. It just gives you an operational standpoint looking at where you are from your budget for this year to last year. The good thing is that you budgeted $16.7 million in your final budget for this year, $16.7 million of operating revenues. And then you had a very positive variance on that regards because your actual expenditure revenue that you received for your operations for this year over 18.1. So that proves a very positive item over there. In addition to that, as you have been in the past, you're conservative in your expenditures from one year to the next. You budgeted 14,209 in total expenditures for this year, only spent 12.2. So you had another positive amount there. And then plus two, capital outlay side of things too, which we kind of break that down a little bit differently and show that in a different line item. That also too proved to be a positive item for this year. So all that being said, from a budget standpoint, there were no compliance issues or anything like that that needed to be reported from a compliance standpoint for your budget. So on a modified accrual basis, and this does not take in consideration anything for depreciation, you had an increase in your revenues and expenditures for this year of 2.7 last year. The last two items that we do want to go over with you too are two letters that we give to the board every year. We call them our SAS 115 and our SAS 114 letters. Those two letters are to the board, and the two things that I'll point out with these two letters, I don't know if those are there or not, or just the end of it. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. All right, just let you know.
These are the two letters that were in your agenda packet.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. So the two letters that we provided to you, the SAS 114 and 115 letters, the big takeaways from this is that with the SAS 115 letter, there were no material weaknesses. There were no areas of compliance that we had to report from that standpoint. And then also too, the SAS 114 letter is just certain items that we have to report to the board every year. The biggest takeaway from this letter is the fact that we had no disagreements from management. We also point out in there, any estimates that are used in your financial statements too as well. So as always, it's a pleasure to work with such a great group of people and who are very diligent and take seriously their financial report. Be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Everybody talking.
Good job. All right, thank you.
Okay, well, thank y'all, and I hope everybody here has a great and Merry Christmas and a great year. All right, thank you, John.
Next up, request approval for personnel policy updates regarding retirement.
Good evening, board. How's everyone this afternoon?
WR.
Good. we received a newsletter from the retirement system and stating that effective December 1, Senate Bill 311 stated that a participating employer is prohibited from imposing a waiting period on any employees who are otherwise eligible to become members of the retirement system. The WSAC's personnel policy has always been that our employees had to meet 6 months of probation before they were eligible to participate in the North Carolina retirement system or 401k. So in saying that, we needed to change our policy to state that they would be eligible at time of hire if they were entering into a position that would require them to work more than 1,000 hours. And I have included the change in the agenda item. So I would just recommend to the board that we approve 8.1 retirement and 8.12 retirement and 401k, state that effective December 1, that there will be no waiting period to enter into the North Carolina local government retirement system or the North Carolina 401k plan.
So did we always do the contribution by WSAC regardless as well? So at the 6 month mark, we gave them 4%. Do we have to give them the 4% on day one?
We don't have to, but we could probably be,
Better to do that.
keep the policies the same rather than.
Got it. And a motion?
Motion to approve.
Probably second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next up, request approval. Mike Wilson is authorized representative for administering art funds.
We received an email with a packet for applying for the $35 million that we were designated in the budget to receive. And part of that requires an authorized representative to fill out the applications and submit the pay request reimbursement. So I'm asking for authorization to be the lead on this funds.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Before probably seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next up, request for approval of increasing capital project ordinance for Coral Creek project.
In looking over this CIP for Lower Coral Creek, noticed that we were getting low on funds and met with Mark Lomax, who's over the easement acquisitions. We have determined we need approximately 250,000 or 200,000 for easements and 50,000 to cover blasting monitoring. This creek area is almost solid rock and there's homes pretty close, so there's some blasting monitoring to verify any claims in the future. We're asking for 250,000 to be cut to come from the system development free fund.
Move for approval. Got a motion on the floor.
Second.
Probably seconded. All in favor, say aye. Request approval. You're just asking for too much. Rest of amendment number 9, master agreement between Charlotte and Water.
This is the big one. This is amendment 9 to the master agreement. It's the one for sharing the cost for the expansion. We have Charlotte Water had some concerns about we were doing some repair and replacement as part of the work we're doing on the expansion. And they felt like they should participate in that amount based on all the capacity of the system rather than just the increase we're doing. So they're going to pay for 40% of the expansion cost and 26.47% of the repair and replacement cost of that, which is they're going to be their share. They're 9 million of the 34 million. So that's how that number's arrived at. So we have worked those percentages out. They've agreed with it. They have an engineer looking over the cost, and we're going to meet and decide which costs are to be split which way. And then we will bill them as we get invoices in, and they will reimburse us according to the amendment. So I'm asking for your approval of this amendment.
Move to approve.
Got a motion on the floor. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, next up, request approval for request to guarantee maximum price. wastewater treatment plant.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, back again this month with more progress on our expansion, which is a good thing. I am very happy to say that the alternative delivery method that we've chosen and the team that we've chosen appear to be working very well at this time to be moving things along at a quick pace, especially as we did last month, beginning the procurement of some very long lead time items. This month we come with the GMP2, which is, as my memo stated, the electrical system replacement and upgrades of the medium voltage incoming switch gear and everything. This goes along with the generators that we purchased within GMP1 last month. And this will involve all new duct bank, new incoming switch gear, transformers and everything throughout the existing facility, but also to service the new units, EQ basins, new aeration basin and stuff like that, that's coming along with this project. This is a good example of what Michael was just referencing, where some of this expenditure of this money is replacing stuff that was original to the plant. Some of it's running new ductwork, new transformers to new equipment. And it's going to be up to our engineer and their engineers to work together to try to figure out the best way to split that up. So this GMP will handle not only the purchase of the equipment required to finish the installation of this medium voltage electrical system, but it will involve the installation of that as well. So it is not just the procurement of materials. This will work is anticipated to begin in February. We start moving in February. We have to finish a little bit of zoning work through the county and a little bit of permitting stuff that needs to take place through that. And then there's equipment that needs to be procured, mobilization efforts that need to take place. But this will have, if everything falls as we anticipate it will, we'll have dirt moving at the plant in the February timeframe on our expansion. And I'd like to point out that had we continued along a traditional design bid build standpoint, optimistically, we would have been bidding this project in the summertime of next year, getting someone under contract, mobilized on site late summer, fall would have probably been optimistic. So by taking this alternative delivery method, we have probably saved ourselves 6 months conservatively, potentially 9 months. So I think it's proven to be the right call and a good move forward. We do have Brock with Crowder Construction here tonight as well. So any questions you guys have concerning this GMP2, how it fits in with anything, where we're at, where we're going on this project, we would be happy to answer at this time.
So the electrical system at the plant has been on our list for a long time. So this project includes the upgrade of the entire plant, which will take care of what we've been talking about for the last 4 or 5 years.
Correct. So the last CIP, the CIP that was published last year, had 2 separate projects in it. One was the medium voltage electrical replacement system, and then the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. It made total sense to marry those projects together with this design build team, and that's what this does. So it is taking 2 CIP projects off of the existing CIP and merging that together into one.
So this project gets us to 34 or beyond.
This project gets all of the electrical equipment, the loop, I guess you would say, conduit in the ground for that 34, correct, to support that 34.
Do we anticipate another upgrade going beyond 34?
Of the
Of
plant?
the electrical.
Of the electrical out, but not of the loop. There may be additional legs pulled off of the loop, but this is going to be a very robust loop of the plant from an electrical standpoint that can be fed either direction off of the 2 separate feeds we have from Concord, and will provide us that backbone that allows us to pull legs off of to feed new service areas within the plant. Brock, did I leave anything out? No. Okay, thank you.
I think you said when it started, when do you think it'll be completed if everything is on schedule?
16 months.
16 months.
16 months, yes, sir.
So that beats our spring, early 2024 timeframe. So that should be that fall, late summer, early fall 23 of this electrical upgrade being completed. And it will be disruptive to the plant, so it makes sense to get started as quick as we can in some of the areas where this heavy excavation is going to be taking place to get some of this done and get out of the way. There's some things that need to be moved and that will allow us to get out in front to help us in some areas. If there's no more questions, it'd be my recommendation that the board approve this GMP2 in amount of $11,992,292 to Crowder Construction.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Got a motion on the floor,
Second.
probably seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Let's approve the increased capital project ordinance or.
This is the first time we've asked. We're gonna go ahead and ask you to budget the revenue bonds. We're confident we're gonna be able to get approval and move forward to that. So we do have enough cash on hand. If something happened, we could use all our retained earnings to do this if something bad happened, but we're asking the budget revenue bonds, $11,992,292 right now for this project. Not asking yet for Charlotte Water's share because of the uncertainty of the amount. I'd rather come back to you at a later time when we know more about the cost sharing on that and amend this budget to recognize their part of this. This is the full amount. This is the full amount right now. Ask request your approval of this budget ordinance.
What's the schedule for the revenue bonds? We haven't really talked much about that.
We're looking at late spring. We've got to get several things in place before that, and we've got to get to the GMP, the final GMP, before we can go to the LGC and get the final approval to issue the bonds. We're trying to decide whether the time we're doing the Lower Cottle Creek parallel interceptor, which is a design build, whether we're going to combine those two in one revenue bond issue or two because of the timing, but we're not going to slow down the plant expansion.
And Michael, Crowder's worked very well with us from cash flow
Right.
analysis standpoint of kind of how that monthly cash flow looks like, and those heavy hitting months don't start occurring until we get into the summer.
We think we can probably carry $16-18 million of our cash before we need to issue the bonds and then pay ourselves back some portion of that amount. We start the next phase of 34.
Is Charlotte gonna pay in a lump sum at the?
They're gonna pay us, we're gonna pay us invoiced as we pay bills that we'll reimburse them and they'll reimburse us. And as I understand it, that's the way the 35 million from the state's also going to work is that we pay the invoices and submit a reimbursement request to the state. A lot of the ARP money was sent out in advance and you spend it and then just reported it, but these funds are coming through EQ and they're treating them much different.
At what point do you think we'll know the impact on the member jurisdictions on rates and other things?
I think
At the time of the bond issue?
We need to nail down what exactly Charlotte Water's percent's going to be, but we can give you some early forecast pretty soon. If on
Can't hurt. It can't hurt just for planning purposes.
We can go with the worst case if you want to, and work on those.
Okay, motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion on the floor.
Second.
Probably second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving to public comment. Anyone on the line? Anyone in the room wishing to chit chat with us? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to go to closed session for GS 143-318-11A3 and A4. A motion on the floor, probably second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries.